Well, we got a little issue going on this morning. I'm out here fishing in northeastern South Dakota in what's called the Glacial Lakes area. And I met a guy a few years ago on a sports show. His name is Tim Chandler. He runs the Glacial Lakes Hunting Lodge and Guide Service. And he told me that there's just some phenomenal shallow water fishing here in late May. And I mean really shallow, 2 to 6 feet of water. So we're gonna get out and probably throw some crankbaits, throw some swim baits. We're gonna get this boat off the trailer and show you the next bite.
Just looking for the next bite, next bite, next bite, next bite. Just looking for the next bite. Yes, we
As if fishing for big walleyes in extremely shallow depths wasn't unique enough by itself, especially on the remarkably formed glacial waters of South Dakota, professional tournament angler Keith Kavajecz and South Dakota native Tim Chandler
He's out there ways. He was right at the end of your cast, huh?
He was way out by the weeds.
are using above-water structures for visual keys as they begin to explore and prioritize areas that are producing active schools of walleye.
What I like about these fish here is look at how like broad their backs are. It just gives them some back to them, some
shoulder,
girth. Yeah. You had them just right. Nice fish there, Timmer. Nice fish, and they're just right off that little weed patch there.
So today we're fishing the Glacial Lakes region of northeast South Dakota. Hundreds of years ago there was glaciers that came through here and made these potholes. Well, then came 97, we had lots of snow, lots of runoff, and has developed these potholes into actual lakes. And there's the cattails and the reed grass, and in there is the grass shrimp. That's the prime source, the food chain that the perch love, the walleyes love. And they grow so big on these grass shrimp. That's why this northeast South Dakota, the Glacial Lakes region, is such a wonderful place to fish.
So we're finding these walleyes in 2 different areas with one big thing in common, and that big thing in common is this grass that's down on the bottom, a real green grass. Seems like the walleyes are hanging around that a lot. So what we're looking for is these, it's almost like a pencil reed or little sticks coming up out of the water, especially if we can find those on points. And the other thing that we have found is some timber, like an old point that's been submerged. Now the one other thing that's in common with these 2 places is that there's some kind of old shoreline break. It seems like if we find a break that comes from 4 feet up to like 2 feet, that's where we're using the swim baits because they work a little bit shallower. If we're finding where it comes out of 6 foot up into 3 or 4 foot, that's where we use the crankbaits because we can work them out a little bit deeper. But again, we're finding the grass, we're finding these little pencil reeds to fish around, and that's where we're finding the walleyes.
Let me come back there and grab the net for you.
Just outside that little bit of grass there, I just flipped it up in there. He smucked it. You ready?
Oh boy, there's a good one. That's a decent fish, yeah. Oh boy.
You know, I didn't even make that long a cast because we just kind of got up on that shallow flat that was full of weeds, full of grass. Once we dropped off of it just a little bit, I pitched up in there, and that's where they're sitting. They're just in that grass, you know. Mm-hmm. Well, you would know. I mean, you've been calling it walleye grass even there. But you know, he didn't play with it. I mean, when he hit it, it was just, he was just on there. So, yeah, that's a nice fish. Up in the walleye weeds, up in the walleye grass.
The next bite is brought to you by Mercury, #1 on the water. Amsoil, performance for serious adventure. Tracker Boats, fish the finest. Bass Pro Shops, your adventure starts here. Berkeley, catch more fish. And MotorGuide, trolling motors engineered for anglers. Closed captioning for the next bite is provided by Power Pole, the ultimate in shallow water anchors. Having identified the general depths in relation to the shallow water weeds that are producing the best bites,
For all the walleyes out there, we'd like to outlaw ripple shots. We think they're an unfair advantage. We like minnows, leeches, worms. No ripple shots. Thank you.
using the right tools for the right jobs, as always, is the best way to pick apart the weeds with minimal downtime from snags.
I got it too. We got a double.
All the while, keeping their lures in the target depth zones as Keith and Tim continue to work the surrounding breaks of these South Dakota glacial lakes.
Well, mine's very big, but
Mine feels pretty healthy.
well, that's just the way it
tapped
would be,
once.
wouldn't it? Oh, I'll get the net for both of us. I can do this. There's mine.
Put a double in the net.
Why not?
I'm out here yet. Okay,
there's
here I
yours.
come. I'm getting close. You're
All
gonna
right.
net them both at the same time?
I am. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, a double header. Look at there.
Double header, double netter.
Yeah, there's some dandies.
Yeah, I know this one is yours because you had the all chartreuse head. It's interesting because they're in such shallow. There's an old shoreline break here. It goes from like 4.5, 4 feet, and then all of a sudden pops up to 2, and they're just on the inside of that, up in those pencil reeds up there. And it's weird because they aren't stopping it. They're kind of
They peck at it.
pecking at it, and where we're getting them. So
I want to talk about a couple of different lures we're using in this shallow water. The ripple shad, I had it on a 1/4 ounce jig here, and we cast that out around the weeds or grass. And it's a swim bait, so you want to swim it back. You can actually pause it. You catch a little grass, you can twitch it. You get into some heavier weeds, you can actually pop it and get it loose. But you pretty much want to swim this like a swim lure. And a lot of times when you pause it like that in that shallow water along the edge of grass, it'll make them walleyes really smack it. The next lure I want to talk to you about is the flicker minnow, shallow running crankbait. And you cast that one out along 4 to 6 feet of water along the edge of grass and swim it back. You can actually stop it, pause it, twitch it a little bit, and that has also worked really well for us. The ripple shad in 2 to 4 feet of water and the flicker minnow in the 4 to 6 feet of water, that's how we've been catching the walleyes. 5 cranks and he hit her. It feels like a pretty good fish.
then I'll get a really good net for you.
Oh yeah, I
Pulling
saw
a little
him.
drag, huh?
I saw him. He's a healthy one.
Oh, he's a good one. I saw a nice wide tail on that one. That's a nice fish. Just swing him around here and we'll get him in. There he is. Yeah, there's a nice
look
one.
at that.
Nice one there.
Look at that.
That is a good one. That's bigger than the average bear right there. Can't get him in my hands. Well, I don't have to worry about the hooks getting caught in the net because they're all caught in his mouth. I should have spoke too early, got the back ones here. There's a one. But did he hit it hard or?
Yeah, I had it way out there. I only probably had 5 cranks on the reel and he just inhaled it.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
It was just barely hooked. There, that's a good fish there.
He's got some shoulders on him, don't he?
He does have some shoulders on him. You can feel he's a heavy fish. They got, you know, when you catch them up shallow like this, they fight so hard, you know. You know, their air bladders don't get big at all, and they just have a lot of power. Especially when you start to get a little bit longer fish like that one. So that's a really nice fish there. Nice job, young man.
Thank you, sir.
I'll even put him back for you. All right, let's see if he wants to just swim away, which I'm sure he does.
Oh, yeah.
Right back down to his weeds.
The Real Deal, real fishing information from real fishing experts, presented by AmSoil.
Many times when we're talking about AmSoil products, we're putting the cart before the horse. And what I mean by that is we're talking about products for our boats. Right now, I'm gonna give a little bit of love to the horse. And what I mean by that is our tow vehicles throughout the year. We're putting a lot of miles on, going cross country to tournaments, shooting these shows. Actually, see right here, they just actually make oils for all these tow vehicles. Here's some premium diesel oil. One of the things that I will say with all these AMSOIL motor oils for these tow vehicles is they exceed all modern specs, basically for diesel oil or for your gas vehicles as well. So basically being able to go longer per oil changes because the oil is such high quality. They also make oil filters, and these are actually 25,000 mile change intervals. There's small fibers in these oil filters that basically in those cold startup situations will allow that engine to start easier and idle more smoothly. The other lubricant that I like to use for these diesels is this diesel cetane boost, and I put this in my truck all summer long. What it does is it cleans up the diesel. It gives you up to 7 more points in cetane, which just makes you get maximum horsepower out of your truck, which is great for towing and also better fuel economy. What AMSOIL's done is made it so simple to find which products for your tow vehicle you actually need. All you need to do is go on to AMSOIL, and you'll see right on the top there's a find products for specific vehicles. You click on that and it'll basically go into drop down tables. You pick all your information on your tow vehicle and it's going to shoot out and show you everything that you need to basically make sure that that truck's running great all summer long to take you to the fish.
Most might lean towards using or experimenting with leaders, especially when your field of play is founded in such shallow water. However, Keith and Tim are having no issues with spooking walleyes by just tying direct. Not to mention the added bonus of keeping things on the tackle end of the spectrum as simple as possible.
So what I'm going to tie on here for my jig is just a Palomar knot with the nanofills or fire lines. You need to tie a knot that won't slip, so just one overhand knot, and then back through the loop you just made is a Palomar knot. Then what I'm going to do is take and put on the ripple shad. Now on the ripple shad, the important thing on that is on the back it's got a seam going down it right here. You want your hook to come out right on that seam so it runs straight. So you simply go through the nose and go maybe about a third of the way down the body, come out right on that seam. And then what you want is for that body to be nice and straight here this way and coming out right on that seam so that it runs nice and straight through the water.
There's one. That one was boom. What you got that net there, Tim?
You got a fish on.
I do have a fish on.
I was retying and you were catching fish.
He whacked it. I mean, there was no doubt about this one.
On a pause?
No, I was just reeling and he just almost hit it like a crankbait, you know.
There he is.
There he is, oh yeah.
Get him up there.
There we go.
There's a dandy.
Yeah, he whacked it all right. Yeah, there we go. Clean as a whistle got him out of that net.
He not as big as your last
He
one.
smoked that, look at there. Right in the top of the roof though, yeah.
And you never pause, you just steady cast.
Steady pull, and he, like I said, he hit it like a crankbait. I suppose that tail back there is just sitting back there.
Just can't resist it. Yep.
And they hit it like crankbait. So let me talk a little bit about the equipment we're using to run both the swim baits and the crankbaits. When you're running a swim bait like this, it's real important to first of all pick out a swim bait that has a real easy action. What I mean by that is you shouldn't have to pull it very much. That paddle tail should start vibrating. I like the 3-inch size. To me, that's the best one for the best action. 1/4 ounce jig so we can, swim it back fairly fast. Then what I use for line is a no stretch line. I started out using a fluorocarbon leader when we first started fishing, but I found out pretty quick it really didn't matter, and it just took longer to retie if I did get broke off. So just tying the nanofill right straight to my jig head. I'm using 8-pound nanofill here, and I like that no stretch line because it gives you a lot of sensitivity, and what you're feeling for is not just the vibration of this tail, but also if you tick a weed, you know that. As far as a rod, what I like to use is a medium light rod. For this jigging, I like a 6-foot rod like this. You want medium light because of that no stretch line. Yet that rod has got to shock absorb that initial hit and then allow you to fight that fish in. Pretty much the same setup for crankbait fishing. The only real difference is I go to a little bit longer rod here. I go to a 7-foot rod, medium light, just so I can get a little bit better whip and cast with this. I know even Tim just used this one rod for both the swim jig and for the crankbait. So get a system where you can feel that bait running out there, but then have a medium light rod so that you can actually fight that fish in and get him into the boat. Flicker minnow. I decided it was getting so flat calm.
Let me grab the net for you.
Trigger these fish a little bit more into biting. He feels like a decent one. I mean, he smoked it. I mean, what's weird is that right before he hit it, I could feel the line almost slack for a second, like he was swiping at it, but then he came right back and just torched it.
Oh, there we got a good one.
That is a good one.
He smacked that flicker minnow, didn't he?
Oh yeah. This is actually that new one that just came out, the number 5. It's kind of nice. It doesn't dive quite as deep as some of the other baits. So fishing this 3 to 5 foot stuff like we are,
yeah,
it's just about right for what it's diving. But it's got a nice little profile, and walleyes like it. Just got done testing it last summer, and it's been really, really good. Just a dynamite little fish catcher.
They're smacking
Couple
it.
good hooks on it, so a little hard to get them off, but that's what you want.
He's all tangled up, isn't he?
Yeah, we got him lassoed, we got him corralled, we got him this, we got him that, but we got him. Yeah, I don't know if it's just this calmer weather now. I mean, it seems like you need to get triggered up a little bit more, and a crankbait kind of vibrating through the water can a lot of times do that.
The next bite is brought to you by Mercury, #1 on the water. Amsoil, performance for serious adventure. Tracker Boats, fish the finest. Bass Pro Shops, your adventure starts here. Berkeley, catch more fish. Mustad, stay sharper longer. Lowrance, find, navigate, dominate. MotorGuide trolling motors engineered for anglers. Strike King, legacy of domination for 50 years. And PowerPole, swift, silent, secure. Hot topics, leading information, and tackle and techniques to make you a better angler. Presented by Mercury.
Pontoons in the United States are very popular boats. Most of them will range from 18 feet long to maybe 24 or so. The engine size will be 60 all the way up to maybe 150 horsepower engine. A lot of those engines are 4-strokes. 4-strokes are extremely popular because they're smooth running and they're very quiet. But when you get a pontoon package, you're kind of set with the prop that comes with the package. I'm here to tell you that there is a much better alternative for pontoon props. We're not looking at a prop that's going to give you a whole bunch more speed because, you know, pontoons aren't speed demons. But control is pretty important. When you're pulling a tuber, you want to be able to make sharp turns without blowing out. If you want to get a little bit of extra speed with your pontoon and you trim your motor up, you don't want that prop blowing out. The Mercury Spitfire CT takes care of those issues. But one of the other things that it does extremely well is when you're coming up to a dock, you can put your pontoon in reverse to stop it quick, and it has unbelievable control when it comes to maneuverability around those dock situations. So if you're looking for an inexpensive, good upgrade to your pontoon rig, the Mercury Spitfire CT is a prop you really need to take a look at.
Given that the majority of these South Dakota glacial lake weed beds, even those paired with relatively appropriate brakes, can add up to potentially being a lot of water to cover. Much like minimizing tackle, minimizing boat control is always an equally important facet in getting the most out of your time on the water.
So I've kind of got an unfair advantage going on. I've pretty much got a third man in the boat. Now that's not my cameraman, it's not another angler. What it is this trolling motor. This XI5 has what's called GPS functions on it. What we're trying to do here a lot of times is simply move along the edges of weed beds. We might have some pencil reeds out there that we're following along the edge of. But what I want to do is just kind of stay a casting distance away and cast up over that grass. So the first function that I use is something called heading lock. And basically all I do here is get my trolling motor going the speed I want it to go. I point it the direction I want it to go, say parallel with these trees right here, and then I press heading lock. And that will lay out a course and it will keep me going right along that course until I change it. Now maybe I'll get a little far out. I can simply tell it to go a little bit right. That'll turn it. And the difference between this and a regular trolling motor is once it gets the direction you pointed it, it starts to straighten itself out and really helps you that way. So heading lock is the first function that I use a lot. The second function is anchor. I simply hit the button, take it out of heading lock, and then I hit the little anchor down here, and wherever we're sitting, that trolling motor will automatically anchor up on it and we will sit right there. So this trolling motor keeps the boat in a better position, keeps me fishing longer, and of course helps me catch more walleyes.
I got a big fish, guys. I saw him come up and smack
Just
that
oh man, that's
in the
a big
clear
one.
water. There he is.
That is a huge fish. Take your time with it. Take
I
your
saw
time.
him in that
Take
clear
your
water.
time.
She's coming up.
There he is. There he is.
He's getting close to the
Come around. Come around. I got him. Yeah! Wow!
There you go. Look at that fish.
And he's off.
He fell off right in the net.
Hey, what is this, man? Switch the color on me.
I switched up the body color. I'll tell you what, I cast it out in that 4 feet of water, and I paused it for a second, and I watched him come from 10 feet away in that clear water. It came right up and smacked me.
Look at that fish. I mean, what a great trip we've had here. I mean, we've literally caught 100 fish and just tons of action and hard hits, but then all of a sudden you can get into a fish that looks like that. That's a beast, man.
That is a nice walleye.
That's a
Look
very
at
nice
the color.
walleye.
I mean, it's beautiful.
He's a beautiful fish. He's got that humpback going on. That's a spawned out female, it looks like to me.
We'll take her.
We'll take her.
That was
Hey,
awesome.
Just really glad you invited me up to do this. Like, it's just so much fun catching fish in such shallow water. You know, a lot of people don't think walleyes bite 2 feet, 4 feet.
Exactly.
Right there, proof is in the pudding. Ripple shad.
Ain't that as big as your last one, though.
What last one? We only talk about the current one.
Oh, that's right.
I'll actually take and bite these right off. That is the mission of the starship ZV-18. Fish with T. Thank you for that. And of course helps me catch more walleyes. Nice cast.
The next bite would like to thank Tim Chandler from Glacial Lakes Hunting Lodge and Guide Service, located just 20 minutes north of Watertown, South Dakota. For more information on this remarkable fishing and hunting destination, please visit glaciallakesguideservice.com.